Welcome back to this channel. Today we are looking at the top 20 NES games of all time. Before we begin, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for your support as it helps out this channel grow. And don't forget to hit the notification button for all future videos. Did your favorite make the list? Let us know in the comments below. So, here is our top 20 NES games of all time. Number 20. Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link. Zelda 2 is a side-scrolling adventure game, but it didn't feel very Zelda-ish compared to the first one. It features side-scrolling areas within a larger top-down world map, rather than the mostly top-down perspective of the previous game, which only uses side-scrolling in a few dungeon basement areas. The game incorporates a strategic combat system, an experience points system, magic spells, and now you can interact with non-player characters in different towns. Your goal is still similar to the first game. You have to travel to different palaces and collect the item in there and then defeat the boss. Despite my reasons for not liking this game as much as some of the other Zelda games, it was still a fun playthrough, and many of its features would later be found in subsequent Zelda games. Number 19. Ninja Gaiden. One of the best side-scrolling action games is found in Ninja Gaiden. A quest to exact revenge on a murdered father while battling a villain who is releasing demonic forces. For 1988, the graphics were quite impressive. It had a grand narrative that didn't feel out of place on a Hollywood set. Plus, if players get into it, it's still really difficult to put down. Even today, people still talk about how difficult it was. No way, shape, or form, Ninja Gaiden was a stroll in the park. This game is extremely challenging. With the motion picture cutscenes, Ninja Gaiden rightly earns a spot on the best NES games list as one of the genre's most impactful games, thanks to its colorful stages and outstanding soundtrack. Number 18. Contra. What a punishingly difficult shooter. Contra is not for those who are easily scared. Throwing the NES controller like a brick at our family's cabinet certainly resulted in more dents than I can count. Contra was one of the first addictively frustrating games ever created, and despite all the punishment you received, it was difficult to resist playing it again and again. You were doomed if you turned your head for even a fraction of a second, since you were constantly being attacked by adversaries and projectiles, coming from all directions. Contra discards everything onto the table if you're prone. Contra was no exception to the general rule that older games were more challenging than their modern counterparts. Keep this in mind: up up down down left right BA start. Number 17. Metroid. Metroid is on this list because it was able to combine various gaming genres into something new and innovative. The player controls the bounty hunter Samus Aran, who protects the galaxy from space pirates and other malevolent forces, and their attempts to harness the power of the parasitic Metroid creatures. The platforming game alone was very challenging. It was a fantastic adventure game where you acquire new abilities as you progress. This game was challenging mainly because there was no map on where to go, and you can easily get lost. Your curiosity and sense of exploration, and crawling through caverns and observing details just to find out you were right but needed to later acquire an ability was very interesting. You should invest time in this game. Number 16. Mega Man 3. Mega Man 3 is an action platformer game that follows to the same rules as its two predecessors. As Mega Man, the player must accomplish a number of stages in any sequence. The player can choose and use their special weapon whenever they choose for the remainder of the game after defeating a stage's boss. New gameplay features including Rush, Mega Man's dog companion, and the ability to slide across the ground are added in Mega Man 3. Mega Man 3, which was launched 2 years after the commercial success of Mega Man 2, has amassed sales of 1.17 million copies and earned favorable reviews from critics. The game's presentation and gameplay have received particular appreciation, despite the fact that many sources felt it was excessively challenging. Number 15. Castlevania. The release of the gothic horror game Castlevania ushered in a brand new era of grand adventure, tension, and monster hunting. There had been similar things done in other games before, but none quite like Castlevania. This game had excellent art, engaging gameplay, and eerie music that came together to form a journey. It established a new bar, which following Castlevania games finally surpassed, but it unmistakably set the template for all other games in the genre to follow. You owe it to yourself to give Castlevania a shot if you haven't already. This is a must-play. On some of the best handheld retro gaming systems available, it's also a wonderful game to play. Number 14. Gremlins 2. For the NES in 1990, Sunsoft created and released the platform video game Gremlins 2, The New Batch. Warner Bros. The movie and the game were both released at the same time. Gizmo, who is armed with anything from the newly invented matchstick-firing bow in the latter stages to the genetically altered Super Tomato in the laboratory, is controlled by the player as he progresses through the building's many floors. To get to the Gremlin Control Center and kill every gremlin there is the objective of the game. You must engage in combat with every variety of gremlin in this game's boss battle, which is found at the end of each level. It had great gameplay and a good soundtrack, and it follows the movie closely. Number 13. Tiny Toons. Buster Bunny is the character that the player initially controls in the initial attempt to free Babs Bunny from Montana Max. The player can choose a different character before each world, and if they discover a star ball, they can change into that character. Dizzy Devil, Furball, and Plucky Duck are the 3 stand-in characters. Dizzy's spin mode allows him to knock down walls and most foes, Plucky can briefly fly, Furball can scale many vertical surfaces, and Buster can jump higher than other characters. The hills, the wetlands, the trees, downtown, Wacky Land, unlike the others, this world only has 1 level, and Monty's Mansion are the 6 worlds in the game, each with 3 levels. With a boss fight at the conclusion of every level. This game was a little on the easy side, but still a fun playthrough. Number 12. Tetris. This game of puzzles is one of the top NES games of all time. Tetris is still one of the oldest and purest puzzle games ever created. Only gaming giants that have endured for centuries and transcended the world of video games can surpass its legendary reputation. The game is so commonplace that it can be found in some version on almost every kind of computing device and is well known all across the world. It's approachable, interesting, demanding, and endlessly replayable to the point where, after extended play sessions, Tetris dreams are not unusual. Number 11. Punch-Out! Punch-Out is a boxing game that isn't really a simulated boxing game. It feels more like an arcade-style boxing game. It's all about timing your dodges and answers and reading your opponent's tells. Punch-Out by Mike Tyson is still a fantastic game. Although some people only know it as Punch-Out, Mike Tyson's name was originally on the game before the license expired. Mr. Dream replaced Tyson after the game was re-released. Little Mac is played through a series of fights against various opponents, culminating in a confrontation with Tyson. Anyone who has played this game will confirm how difficult it is to defeat Tyson or Mr. Dream in the ring. They continues to be one of the most challenging bosses in any game ever. Number 10. G.I. Joe. A team of 3 G.I. Joe characters, each with a distinct specialty, are under the player's control. The objective of the game is to progress through 6 stages on a quest to ultimately defeat Cobra. In the game, the player gathers power-ups that enhance the capabilities of specific characters. The game's first 5 characters each have a special skill to contribute, and a 6th character joins the cast for the game's final stage. For each region, the player may select a 3-person team. After pausing the game while playing, the player can change between characters. A combination of quickness, endurance, strength, and firepower define the characters. 3 separate segments make up each stage, with the boss battle at the end of each stage. This game can be a little challenging. Number 9. Ninja Gaiden 2. With some gorgeous cutscenes and good music, Ninja Gaiden 2, The Dark Sword of Chaos is a visually appealing NES game. This sequel offers a fun challenge with upgrades to the wall jumping and difficulty curve from the first title, which carried the Shadow Warriors branding in Europe. The game is generally fair, and its positive aspects work together to cover for its negative aspects and make Ryu's second NES adventure a very gratifying one. Being sent flying straight into a pit and having foes reappear can be annoying, though, but it's still a worthy sequel. Number 8. Turtles 3. Although the arcade game didn't provide the ideal arcade experience, it was as close as any NES game had ever been. But it wasn't until that game's relatively underappreciated sequel that the Turtles' 8-bit potential was completely fulfilled. Manhattan Project had more ambitious levels, a better soundtrack, and an overall more coherent experience that felt like it belonged on the NES, in addition to the normal visual and mechanical enhancements that the finest video game sequels typically contain. You'll enjoy playing it again and again for as long as it's available. Number 7. Kirby's Adventure. When playing Kirby's Adventure on the NES or as part of the Nintendo Switch Online NES collection, you can experience it retro style with only the 2 dimensions on the NES or with the 3D slider, set to the maximum in the 3D Classics version on the 3DS. It's a pinnacle in the Pink Puffball's lengthy career, and its 8-bit graphics are still stunning after all these years. The soundtrack is pretty good too. Even if you don't think of yourself as a Kirby fan, this journey will convert you. Number 6. Castlevania 3. Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, a prequel to the original and arguably the best Castlevania on the NES. It's a great balance between the innovations of Simon's Quest and the simpler style of the first game. One of the most ambitious 8-bit games ever created, it still merits your attention 3 decades later. With multiple playable characters in addition to your Belmont, Trevor, this time, multiple paths. The best audio you'll find on NES hardware, even without the extra sound channels of the Japanese Famicom version. And graphics to match, with a killer soundtrack, makes Castlevania 3 one of the most ambitious 8-bit games ever made. Number 5. DuckTales. This game is for you if you want to satisfy your NES nostalgia craving or if you enjoyed DuckTales as a child. The presentation is superb, the characters you know and love are there, and they all look spot on just like the cartoon, and the gameplay is fresh and incredibly entertaining. Non-linear exploration and an alternative ending will keep you going back for more. You get to pick any of the levels you want to play. Uncle Scrooge is still as grumpy and endearing as when he was younger. Not too challenging, but it's still one of the best games ever produced with a license. Number 4. Mega Man 2. The classic example of a successful sequel is Mega Man 2, who executes it flawlessly. Gameplay is relatively similar to the first Mega Man title. Our blue hero must travel through 8 stages before tackling a boss fortress at the very end. It updates the enemy AI, tightens up the physics, keeps the greatest aspects of the first game while adding a ton of fresh content and difficulties. It also helps that the soundtrack is great from beginning to end. What more can be said? If you only play one Mega Man game, and why would you do that? You should definitely toss a coin to select between this and the sequel. It is an amazing classic and one of the best 8-bit games ever developed. It's kind of easier than the first game, but it's still challenging. Number 3. Batman. A traditional 2D platformer from a time when that was the default genre for any licensed game, much like 3D open-world action games are these days. The reassuring subtitle, the video game, promises an experience that follows the beats of Tim Burton's 1989 movie, a movie event that is thought to have given rise to the contemporary, cross-media comic book blockbuster. Sunsoft may not have produced the most accurate of tie-ins, but it's a compact little game with great music that features an athletic caped crusader wall jumping and punching his way through an 8-bit Gotham City in search of the Joker. It's still a delightful retro treat today. The Legend of Zelda is the first installment of the Zelda series. It centers its plot around a boy named Link, who becomes the central protagonist throughout the series. Link must successfully navigate each dungeon to obtain one of the 8 pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom. What else can be said about the Zelda franchise? The original game still plays pretty well, but you'll need to dig around and put in some serious effort to get the solutions. The game itself introduces a new level of gaming for its time, one that includes role-playing, action, adventure, and puzzle solving. The Legend of Zelda has enough faith in the player and in its own abilities to allow you make mistakes. It's a good game that still feels new, and it's worth playing again. And the number 1 NES game of all time. Super Mario 3. As monumentally significant as the first Super Mario game was, Super Mario Bros. 3 represented a huge advancement in almost every aspect. More mechanical diversity, graphic variety, one-and-done aspects, and refinements to the fundamentals were included than in any previous video game. In fact, there are still certain suits, stages, and secrets in the game that players may never have discovered. Super Mario 3 doesn't require any limitations, unlike many vintage games that require historical background or warnings when played years after release. The music and the graphics have been greatly improved over the original, with bigger levels, harder bosses. This makes it one of the best video games ever created. It is still as wildly original and cutting-edge as the day it was first launched. That will do it for this video. Do you agree with our list? Did your favorite make the list? Leave your comments below. For more top lists coming soon, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great day.